Right now, there is a mathematically backed prediction sending absolute shockwaves through the tech world. We're talking about the very real possibility that artificial general intelligence, AGI, could actually be here by 2027. In today's explainer, we're going to break down exactly why this isn't some far-off sci-fi fantasy. Based on fascinating insights from a former AI lab insider, we're going to see how this timeline is simply the inevitable result of highly predictable, trackable trend lines. Let's set the stage with a profoundly chilling quote from AI pioneer Ilya Sutskever. He famously said, "Look, the models, they just want to learn. You have to understand this. You know, it is so easy to get caught up in the hype or the mystical aura of how AI works. But as the source material points out, raw scaling and simple, straight trend lines are the actual engine here. You scale these systems up and they just learn more. It really is that fundamental." So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to unpack the 2027 prediction, track the crazy jump from a preschooler to a high schooler AI, count the OOMs, and then break down the three main drivers making this all happen: massive compute, algorithmic efficiency, and unhobbling models. Let's start with Section 1, the 2027 AGI prediction. Take a look at this straight logarithmic line for effective compute. See how it tracks the push from models with barely elementary level smarts a few years ago, right up to the smart high schooler level we have today with GPT-4? Now look at that dashed line pointing into the future. Based on public estimates, that line points straight to a fully automated AI researcher or engineer by 2027. The author of our source material argues that almost nobody is pricing this into their worldview right now, but when you actually look at the math, AGI by 2027 is strikingly plausible. Moving on to Section 2, preschooler to high schooler. To really ground this, just think about the last 4 years. In 2019, GPT-2 was basically a preschooler. It could maybe string together a coherent sentence about unicorns, but ask it to count to 5 and it completely falls apart. Then, just 1 year later, in 2020, GPT-3 drops. Suddenly we have an elementary schooler that can do basic math and write simple code. Fast forward to 2023, and GPT-4 enters the chat like a really smart high schooler, literally acing AP exams and writing highly complex code. So here is the million-dollar question. That entire evolution from a struggling preschooler to an AP acing high schooler happened in exactly 4 years. We've kind of become numb to how crazy that pace is, but if we conquered high school in 4 years, where exactly does this rapid trajectory logically point to next? That brings us to Section 3, counting the OOMs. Okay, to understand the math of the next jump, we need to know what an OOM is. It just stands for order of magnitude. For our purposes today, think of it as a 10x multiplier, a massive 10x jump in scale. When AI researchers talk about progress, they honestly try to avoid getting bogged down in messy architectural jargon. Instead, they just look at effective compute scale-ups measured in OOMs. It's simply the most reliable, straightforward way to predict how capable a model is going to be. And here is where the numbers get absolutely staggering. Based on historical trend lines, we should expect a roughly 100,000 times increase in effective compute over the next 4 years. That is 5 orders of magnitude, 5 OMS. To put that into perspective, that's like upgrading your bicycle to a literal Saturn V rocket. This 100,000x multiplier is the mathematical formula for our next massive qualitative leap. But where do these 5 OMS actually come from? Well, they come from 3 specific drivers working together. Let's dive into Section 4, Driver 1, Massive Compute. Right now, training compute is growing at a phenomenal rate of about half an OOM per year. And I want to be clear, this is not your standard Moore's Law, which is basically moving at a glacial pace compared to this. What we're seeing is a massive, unprecedented industrial mobilization. Behind closed doors, there is a fierce scramble to lock down massive power contracts and build trillion-dollar GPU clusters. Just feeding these models exponentially more raw physical power is driving a huge chunk of this progress. Next up, Section 5, Driver 2, Algorithmic Efficiency. Because hardware isn't everything, right? Algorithmic improvements stack directly on top of that physical compute. The physical hardware is growing rapidly, sure, but historically, researchers also find ways to make algorithms better at a rate that gives us another half an OOM per year. So we're effectively cutting the compute cost for the exact same performance by an order of magnitude every couple of years. It's exactly like finding a magic way to make your car run 10 times further on the exact same tank of gas. Now, there is a catch. People worry about the data wall. basically running out of high-quality internet text to train these models on. But labs are adapting. The old way was forcing a model to mindlessly speed-read a dense internet textbook. It worked, but it wasn't super efficient. The new way is all about high sample efficiency. They're training models to use internal monologues, tackle practice problems, and use self-play. They learn to actually reason through a problem until it clicks, rather than just parroting text. This shift is how we smash through the data wall and keep that trend line soaring. Which brings us to Section 6, Driver 3, Unhobbling Models. This is maybe the most fascinating part. Out of the box, base models are incredibly smart, but they are totally hobbled. They literally just want to predict the next word in a sequence. But by using unhobbling techniques, things like reinforcement learning from human feedback or RLHF, we train them to actually answer questions instead of just rambling. We add chain of thought reasoning so they can think step by step on a mental scratch pad. We give them scaffolding, tools like web browsers, and massive context lengths of over 1 million tokens. By removing these artificial constraints, we turn raw text predictors into highly capable problem solvers. And the impact is wild. Look at the performance on complex agentic tasks. By simply adding tools and scaffolding to the exact same base GPT-4 model, task success rates skyrocketed from a measly 5% to nearly 40%. Think about that. The underlying intelligence of the model didn't change one bit. We just gave it the right tools, the right setup, and the space to actually think. So when you combine this massive scaling with unhumbling, AI transitions from a helpful chatbot into a true agent coworker. There are 2 steps here. Step 1 is solving the onboarding problem. With huge context windows, you can feed in AI all your company's documents, code bases, and Slack histories, literally onboarding it just like a human employee. Step 2 unlocks this time compute. Instead of forcing the AI to spit out an answer in seconds, you let it spend weeks researching, debugging, and thinking about a complex problem before it submits a polished report. I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought. We have seen the trend lines. We've counted the OOMs. We know about the massive compute, the algorithmic efficiency, and the unhobbling. If an AI can mathematically evolve from a struggling preschooler to a really smart high schooler in just 4 short years, what exactly happens to our world and to your daily life when it becomes your smartest coworker by 2027? It's a staggering question. The data says it's coming, so keep your eyes on those trend lines. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.